So, Chapter 1 On Dark Places. Chapter 1 Understanding Low Mood. What's up, Jay? Everyone has low days. Everyone. But we all differ in how frequent the low days are and how severe the low mood. Something that I've come to realize over the years of working as a psychologist is how many people struggle with low mood and would never tell a soul. Their friends, family would never know. They mask it, push it away, and focus on meeting expectations. Sometimes people arrive at therapy after years of doing that. Alright. They feel like they're getting something wrong. They compare themselves to people who appear to have it all together all the time. The ones who are always smiling and apparently full of energy. They buy into the idea that some people are just like that, and happiness is some sort of personality type. Either you have it, or you don't. If we see low mood as purely a fault in the brain, we don't believe we can change it. So instead, we get to work on hiding it. We go about the day doing all the right things, smiling at all the right people, and yet the time feeling a bit empty and dragged down by low mood, not enjoying things in the way we are told that we should. Take a moment to notice your body temperature. You might feel pretty comfortable, or you might be too hot or too cold. While changes in how hot or cold you feel could be a change of infection and illness. It could just as easily be a sign of things around you. Maybe you forgot your jacket, which is normally enough to protect you from the cold. Perhaps the sky is clouded over and it has started to rain. Maybe you are hungry or dehydrated. Maybe you run for the bus, you notice you warm up. Our body temperature is affected by our environment, both internal and external. And also, we have the power to influence it ourselves. Mood is much the same. When we experience low mood, it may have been influenced by several factors from our internal and external world. But when we understand what those influences are, we can use that knowledge to shift in the direction that we want to go. Sometimes the answer is to grab an extra layer and run for the bus. Sometimes it's something else. Something that science has been confirming to us. And something that people often learn in therapy is that we have more power to influence our emotions than we thought. This means that when we start to work on our own well-being and taking our emotional health into our own hands, it reminds us that our mood is not fixed and it does not define who we are. It is a sensation we experience. This doesn't mean we eradicate low mood or depression. Life still presents us with hardship, pain, and loss. And that will always be reflected in our mental health and physical health. Instead, it means that we can build up a toolbox of things and help. The more that we practice using these tools, the more skilled we get at using them. So when life throws us problems that hammer our mood into the ground, we have something that we can turn to. The concepts and skills covered for us all. Research shows them to be helpful with those with depression, but they are not a controlled drug that you need a prescription for. They are life skills, tools that we can all use as we go through life, facing fluctuations in mood, big and small. For anyone who's experienced severe and enduring mental illness, it is always optimal to turn to new skills with the support of a professional. How feelings get created. Sleep is bliss. Then my alarm offends my ears. It is too loud and I hate that tune. It sends a shockwave through my body that I'm not ready for. I press the snooze and lie back down. My head is aching and I feel irritated. I press the snooze again. If we don't get up soon, the kids will be late for school. I need to get ready for my meeting. I close my eyes and see the to-do list lying on my desk in the office. Dread, irritation, exhaustion. I don't want to do this today. Is this low mood? Did it come from my brain? How did I wake up like this? Let's trace back. Last night I stayed up late working. By the time I got into bed, I was too tired to get back downstairs to grab some water. Then my baby woke up twice in the night. I haven't slept enough and I'm dehydrated. The loud alarm woke me up from a deep sleep, sending stress hormones shooting through my body as I woke up. My heart started pounding, and that felt something like stress. Each of these signals send information to my brain. We are not okay! So my brain goes on the hunt for reasons why. It searches, it finds. So my physical discomfort brought about by a lack of sleep and dehydration helped to create low mood. Not all low mood is unidentified dehydration, but when dealing with the mood, it is essential to remember that it is not all in your head. It is also in your body. It is also in your body state, your relationships, your past and your present, your living conditions and lifestyle. It is in everything that you do and don't do, in your diet and your thoughts, your movements and your memories. How you feel is not simply a product of your brain. Your brain is constantly working to make sense of what is going on, but it is only a certain number of clues to work from. It takes information from your body, heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, hormones. It takes information from each of those senses, what you can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. It takes information from your actions and thoughts. It pieces all these clues together with memories you have from felt similar in the past and make a suggestion, a best guess about what is happening and what you need to do about it. The guess that guess can sometimes be felt as an emotion or a mood. The meaning that we make of this emotion and how we respond to it in turn sends signals back to the body and to the mind about what to do next. So when it comes to changing your mood, the ingredients that go into it will determine what comes out. The two-way road. Lots of self-help books tell us to get our mindset right. They tell us what you think will change how you feel, but they often miss something critical. It doesn't end there. The relationship works both ways. The way that you feel also influences the type of thoughts that can pop into your head, making you more vulnerable to experiencing thoughts that are negative and self-critical. Even when we know that our thought patterns aren't helping, it is so incredibly hard to think differently when we feel down, and even harder to feel the rule of only positive thoughts that is often suggested on social media. The mere presence of those negative thoughts does not mean that they will come first and cause the low mood. So thinking differently may not be the only answer. How we think is not the whole picture. Everything that we do and don't do influences our mood too. When you feel down, all you want to do is hide away. You don't feel like doing any of the things that you normally enjoy, and so you don't. But disengaging from those things for too long makes you feel even worse. That loop often also occurs with our physical state. Let's say you have been too busy to exercise for a few weeks. You feel tired and in low mood. So exercise is the last thing that you want to do. The longer you avoid the exercise, the more you feel lethargic and low on energy. When you feel low on energy, the chance of exercising goes down along with your mood. Low mood gives you the urge to do things that make the mood worse. So we get stuck into these vicious cycles easily because all different aspects of our experience are impacting each other. But while this shows us how we can get stuck in a rut, it also shows us the way out. All these things are interacting to create our experience. But we don't experience our thoughts, bodily sensations, emotions, and actions all separately. We experience them together as one. Like wicker strands woven together, it's hard to notice each one individually. We just experience the basket as a whole. That is why we need to get practice at breaking it down. When we do that, we can more easily see what changes we can make. When we break down in this way, we can start to recognize not only what keeps us stuck, but also what we do that helps. Most people come into therapy knowing that they want to feel different. They have some unpleasant, sometimes excruciating feelings that they don't want to have anymore, and are missing some of the more enriching emotions, such as joy and excitement, that they would like to feel more of. We can't just press a button and produce our desired set of emotions for the day, although I wish we could. But we do know that we can feel how we feel is closely entwined with the state of our body, the thoughts that we spend with, and our actions. Those other parts of our experience are the ones that we can influence and change. The constant feedback between the brain, the body, and our environment means that we can use those to influence how we feel. Alright, so let me explain figure 2 because I'm just going to put it in Patreon anyway. So, figure 2, there's a 4 square box. In the top left says thoughts. Nothing ever goes right for me. I am such a loser. Box 2 to your top right is emotions, low mood, and sadness. Bottom right, physical sensations, low energy, and increased appetite. Bottom left is behavior, urges, withdrawal from friends, actions, stop working on my goals. And there's arrows pointing to each one of them in an X fashion and crossed over in a square. So it basically goes through in an endless, ruthless cycle. All right, so where to start? The first step to begin getting a grasp on low mood to build our awareness of each aspect of the experience. This simply means noticing each one. This awareness starts off with hindsight. We look back on the day and choose moments that we want to look at in detail. Then, with time and practice, that builds our ability to notice them in the moment. This is where we get the opportunity to change things. In therapy, I might ask someone with low mood to notice where they feel it in their body. They might notice that they feel tired and lethargic, or lose their appetite. They might also notice that when they feel low, they have thoughts like, I don't feel like doing anything today. I am so lazy. I'll never be successful. What a loser. They might have the urge to go hide in the bathroom at work for a while and scroll through social media. Once you get familiar with what's going on inside of your own body and mind, you can then expand that awareness to looking at what is going on in your environment and your relationships and the impact that is having on your internal experience and behavior. Take your time getting to know the details. When I am feeling like this, what am I thinking about? When I am feeling like this, what state is my body in? How was I looking after myself in the days or hours leading up to this feeling? Is this an emotion or just physical discomfort from an unmet need? There are lots of questions. Sometimes the answers will be clear. Sometimes it will all feel too complex. That is okay. Continuing to explore and write down experiences that will help to build up self-awareness about what makes things better and what makes things worse. Alright, so toolkit. Reflect on what is contributing to your low mood. Use a cross-sectional formulation, see figure 2, so the one that I had explained out, to practice the skills of picking up on different aspects of experiences, both positive and negative. You'll find a blank formulation here so that you can fill it in yourself. Take 10 minutes and pick a moment from the day to reflect on. You may notice that some of the boxes are easier to fill than others. Reflecting on moments after they happen will help you to gradually build up the skill of noticing the links between those aspects of your experience as they happen. So try this. You can use these prompts to help you fill in the formulation, or you can simply use these as journal prompts. What was happening in the lead up to this moment that you were reflecting on? What was happening just before you noticed the new feeling? What were your thoughts at this time? What were you focusing your attention on? What emotions were present? Where did you feel that in your body? What other physical sensations did you notice? What urges appeared for you? Did you act on these urges? If not, what did you do instead? How did your actions influence the emotions? How did your actions influence your thoughts and beliefs about the situation? So that's the last question for the prompt. So now we're going to go on the chapter summary. So mood fluctuation is normal. Nobody's happy all the time. But we don't have to be at the mercy of it either. There are things that we can do to help. Feeling down is more likely to reflect unmet needs than a brain malfunction. Each moment of our lives can be broken down into the different aspects of our experience. Those things all influence each other. It shows us how we get stuck in a downward spiral of low mood or even depression. Our emotions are constructed through a number of things that we can influence. We cannot directly choose our emotions and switch them on, but we can use these things we can control to change how we feel. Using the cross-sectional formulation, so that little box thing that I was talking about, it helps us to increase awareness on what is impacting our mood and keeping us stuck. Chapter 2, Mood Pitfalls to Watch Out For. The problem with instant relief. Low mood gives us the urge to do things that we can make our mood even worse. When we feel discomfort and the threat of low mood, we want to get back to feeling lighter. Our brain already knows from experience what tends to help the quickest, so we feel urges to do whatever will make it all go away as soon as possible. We numb or distract ourselves and push that feeling away. For some, that is via alcohol, drugs, or food. For others, it is watching TV for hours or scrolling through social media. Each of those things are so inviting because they work in the short term. They give us the instant distraction and numbing that we crave. That is, until we switch the TV off, close down the app, we sober up. And then the feelings come back. Each time we go round that cycle, the feelings come back even more intense. Alright, so in this figure 3, you have on the very left side, alcohol, instant relief, sobering up. In the middle, you have a circle with arrows pointing to each one. So you have the arrow pointing to alcohol and then sobering up back to low mood sadness, which is in the middle. And then you have, going to the right hand side, you have an arrow going to numbing with TV and social media, instant relief, then switching off, and then that arrow coming right back to low mood and sadness. Finding ways to manage low mood involves reflecting on the ways in which we can respond to those feelings, having compassion for our human need for relief, while also being honest with ourselves about which of those attempts to cope are making things worse in the long term. Often the things that work best in the long term are not fast acting. So try this. Use these questions as journal prompts to help you reflect on your current coping strategies for low mood. When I'm feeling low, what are your go-to responses? Do those responses provide instant relief from the pain and discomfort? What effect do they have in the long term? What do they cost you? Not money, but in time, effort, health, and progress, in parentheses. Thought patterns that make you feel worse. As we discussed in the previous chapter, the relationship between thoughts and feelings goes both ways. The thoughts we spend time with affect how we feel, but how we feel also has an effect on the thought patterns that come up. Listed below are some of the thought biases that we commonly experience when mood is low. They sound familiar, and that's because their thought biases are normal. They happen to everyone to varying degrees, but they are more likely to happen when we experience fluctuations in mood and emotional states. Understanding what they are and starting to notice them when they appear is a big step towards taking some of the power out of them. Mind reading. Woo! Having a grasp on what the people around us are thinking and feeling is critical for humans. We live in groups and depend on each other. So we all spend much of our lives guessing what other people are thinking and feeling. But when we're feeling down, we are more likely to assume that those guesses are true. When my friend looked at me funny, I just knew that she hated me. But on a different day, when I'm not struggling with low mood, I might be more inclined to be a bit more curious about what is going on, and possibly even ask her. You might notice that you feel the need for more reassurance from others when your mood is low. If you don't get that extra reassurance, you might automatically assume that they are thinking negatively about you. But that is a bias, and it is quite possible that you are your own worst critic. Overgeneralization. When we are struggling with low mood, it only takes one thing to go wrong, and then we have a tendency to write the whole day off. You spill some milk in the morning, and it goes everywhere. You feel stressed and frustrated, but you don't want to be late. Overgeneralization is when we see this one event as a sign that today will be one of those days. Nothing is going your way. It never does. You start asking the universe to give you a break because it sure as hell feels like it's going against you today. When this happens, we start to expect more things will go wrong, and it's a slippery slope towards hopelessness. Overgeneralizing thoughts particularly like to show up along with the pain of a breakup. One relationship ends, and our thoughts start to suggest that this means that we will never make a relationship work, and we can never be happy with anyone else. It is natural to have these thoughts, but left unchecked will contribute to more pain and low mood. Egocentric thinking. When times are hard, and you feel that you're not at your best, this tends to narrow our focus. It becomes more difficult to consider other people's opinions and perspectives, or that they might hold different values. This bias can cause problems in our relationships because it can disrupt how connected we feel to others. For example, we set a rule for living, something like, I must always be on time for everything. We then apply that rule to others and feel offended or hurt when they fall short of that. That might make us feel less tolerant of others, disrupt our mood even further, and add relationship tensions into the mix. This equates with trying to control the uncontrollable and inevitably sends our low mood spiraling down even further. Emotional reasoning. This is thoughts are not facts. Feelings are not facts either. Emotions are information, but when that information is powerful, intense, and loud, as emotions can be, then we're more vulnerable to believing in them as a true reflection of what is going on. I feel it, therefore, it must be a fact. Emotional reasoning is a thought bias that leads us to use what we feel as evidence for something to be true, even when there might be plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. For example, when you walk out of an exam feeling deflated and low in mood and lacking confidence, emotional reason tells you that this must be because you failed. You may have performed okay in the exam, but your brain takes the information from how you feel, and when you're not feeling like a winner right now, the low mood could have been created by the stress following by exhaustion. But the feeling is influencing how you then interpret your situation. The mental filter. The thing about the human brain is that when you believe something, your brain will scan the environment for any signs that belief is true. Information that challenges our beliefs about ourselves and the world is psychologically threatening. Things suddenly become unpredictable, and that doesn't feel safe. So the brain tends to discount it and hold on to whatever fits with previous experience, even if that belief causes distress. So during hard times, when you may be feeling low and believe that you are a failure, your mind will act like a sieve, letting go of all the information that suggests otherwise and holding on to any indication that you have not lived up to expectation. Let's say that you post a picture on social media and plenty of your followers leave a positive comments. But you are not looking for those. You skim past them, searching for any negative ones. If you find any, you might spend a significant portion of your day thinking it over, feeling hurt, and doubting yourself. In evolutionary terms, it makes sense that you are feeling vulnerable. You keep an extra lookout for signs of threats. But when you are trying to come back from a dark place, the mental filter is something to be aware of. The must and shoulds. Beware of those must and shoulds. I don't believe, well, I don't mean the healthy and the normal sense of duty we have to our community. I mean the relentless expectations that send us down a downward spiral of unhappiness. I must be more like this, or I should feel that. The musts and shoulds are heavily tied up with perfectionism. For example, if you feel that you will never, if you feel you must never fail, you are setting yourself up for a roller coaster of emotions and a struggle with mood when you make a mistake or encounter a setback. We can strive for success and accept failures along the way, but when we set ourselves unrealistic expectations, we become trapped by them. This means we suffer whenever there's any sign that we may not be living up to them. So watch out for these musts and shoulds. When you are already struggling with mood, expect yourself to do, be, and have everything that you are when you are at your best is not helpful or realistic. The all or nothing thinking. I used to be like that. So the all or nothing thinking, also known as the black and white thinking. This is another thought bias that can make mood worse if we leave it unchecked. This is when we think in absolutes or extremes. I am either a success or a complete failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm ugly. If I make a mistake, I should have never bothered. This polarized thinking style leaves no room for the gray areas that are often closer to reality. The reason this pattern of thought makes everything harder is because it makes us vulnerable to more intense emotional reactions. If failing one of the exams means you're a failure as a person, then the emotional fallout from that will be more extreme and much harder to pull back from. When you feel in low mood, you're more likely to think in this polarized way. But it is important to remember that this is not because your brain is getting things wrong or malfunctioning in any way. When we are under stress, all or nothing thinking creates a sense of certainty or predictability about the world. What we then miss is a chance to think things through more logically, weighing up the different sides of the argument and coming to a more informed judgment. So this is figure 4. I don't know if I'm going to put this in video form or in the form of audio, but I will explain it out real quick. So there's a rectangle here with three Three explanations across the top. Thought bias, what is it, and then example. So you're going to have these three columns. I'm going to read the column of thought bias first, followed by what is it, and then the example. All right, so the thought bias of mind reading, making assumptions about what others are thinking and feeling. She hasn't called me in a while because she hates me. Overgeneralization, taking one event and using it to generalize about other things. I failed my exam. My future is ruined. Egocentric thinking, assuming that others have the same perspective and values as we have, and judging their behaviors through that lens. I never thought I would never be late like that. He obviously doesn't care enough about me. Emotional reasoning, I feel it, therefore it must be true. I feel guilty, therefore I am a bad parent. Musts and shoulds, relentless and unrealistic expectations that set us up to feel like a failure every day. I must always look perfect. I should never do any less than my absolute best. All or nothing thinking, thinking in absolutes or extremes. If I don't get 100%, I'm a failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm not going out. What to do with thought biases. Now that you know some of the most common thought biases that can make your mood worse, what is next? We can't stop those thoughts from arriving, but the power in seeing all of them for what they are, biased, and then managing how to respond to them. If we acknowledge that each of our thoughts are thought presents just one possible idea among many, then we open up ourselves to the possibility of considering others. This means that the original thought has less power over our emotional state. To be sure we respond to them in the way that we want to, first we need to notice that the biases when they appear. If we don't step back and see them as bias, we buy into them as if they were present, a fair reflection of reality. Then they can feed on that low mood and exert their influence over what we do next. Noticing thought biases sound obvious, and it is simple, but it's not always easy. When we're in the moment, we don't always experience a thought that we can see clearly. We notice that this mess of emotions, physical sensations, images, memories, and urges all at once. We're so used to doing everything on autopilot that stopping to check out the details of the process it can take a lot of practice. Here are some of the ways you can start to spot these biases and the impact that they have on you. So getting started. High emotion states that we can make it hard to think clearly, so it can be easier to start by reflecting on thought biases after the emotion of the moment has passed. You build your awareness by looking back, but that gradually builds towards awareness in real time. Start keeping a journal and choose specific moments to focus on, both positive and negative. Make a distinction between what you were thinking and the time, what emotions you noticed, and what physical sensations came with that. Once you have the thoughts written down, go over the list of biases and see if your thoughts might have been biased at the time. If you are in the moment and you have a chance to write something down, put pen to paper and express your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations. But as you do that, try to use language to help you get some distance from those thoughts and feelings. For example, I'm having thoughts that ... or I am noticing these sensations. This use of language helps you to step back from the thoughts and feelings to see them as an experience that is washing over you, rather than an absolute truth. If you have someone you can trust and can confide in, you can share with them these thought biases that you are prone to, and that they can help you to spot them and call them out. But this requires a very good relationship with someone who is accepting and respectful and supports you in your choice to work on change and growth. It is not easy to be called out in a moment, so this one takes some careful planning to make sure that it works for you. Start a mindfulness practice is the way forward when you want to get a bird's eye view of what your thoughts are doing. Having a set time of the day that when you pay attention to your thoughts is a great idea. It is your formal practice to build up that ability to step back from your thoughts and observe them without judgment. A few pointers. As we are building awareness of our thoughts, we need to work hard to see that pattern of thought as just one possible interpretation of the world and allow ourselves to consider alternatives. Spotting these common thought biases and labeling them helps us to do just that. This is not something we do just once. It is a continued effort and practice. Sometimes you may not spot a thought as bias. At other times, you will be able to spot them and come back to them with a more helpful alternative. In trying to find alternatives, some people try to look back for the correct answer. It is not so much the exact wording of the alternative perspective that is important. What matters more is the practice of stopping before you buy into a thought as fact and actively considering other views. As a general rule, it helps to look for a perspective that feels more balanced, fair, and compassionate, and that takes into the account all the information available. Emotions tend to drive more extreme and biased views, but life is more complex and full of gray areas. It's okay not to have a clear opinion on something while you take your time to think about the different sides of the story. So give yourself permission to sit on the fence for as long as you need to. Build up that ability to tolerate not knowing. When we do that, we are choosing to stop living life by the first thought that pops into our head. Our choices become more consciously thought out. Let's say I spill the milk all over the floor at breakfast and immediately start asking myself, why am I such a failure in life? And why nothing ever goes right for me? That's a mix of generalization and the all or nothing thinking right there. If I can spot that bias and call it out, I can open up the window of opportunity in which I can reduce the intensity of the emotional response that might otherwise follow. It is never fun to spill milk, but our relationship with our thoughts can make the difference between a few minutes of frustration and something that ruins your entire day. Like everything in this book, it is very easy to say, but much harder to do. It takes practice, and it doesn't make us invincible. But it helps, and it stops small moments turning into big ones. Chapter summary. Thought biases is inevitable, but we are not helpless to its effects. We naturally look for evidence that confirms our beliefs. We then experience what we believe, even when there is evidence to suggest otherwise. Whatever has caused our low mood, it tends to come along with the focus on threat and loss. This bias towards the negative can then feed it back to intensify the low mood if we continue to focus on and believe those thoughts to be facts. One strategy against a downward spiral this can cause is understanding that how we feel is not evidence that our thoughts are true. Another strategy is taking a stance of curiosity. Get some distance from those thoughts by becoming familiar with the common biases, noticing when they appear and labeling them as biases, not facts.